Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, King.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies.
This is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Celebrity Apprentice After Show.
We'll break down tonight's episode and give you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show.
It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Celebrity Apprentice After Show.
Woo! Hello, everybody. Bing is for doing, and we are doing the Celebrity Apprentice AFTERBUZZ After Show. My name is Nando Velasquez, and joining me this week, across from me, is...
What's up, guys? Scott Moore. I'm back for some more fun with you guys.
Awesome. I love Scott Moore. We used to work together. We have a little bit of history together, so it's all good.
Work history.
Work history. It's strictly professional.
Yes.
Strictly professional. So anyway, so we are here for Celebrity Apprentice this week, and it is the name of this week's episode, which is very apropos, is How Do You Spell Melania? And it's spelled correctly. I spelled it correctly, but if you watch the show, you know what I'm talking about, and we'll talk a lot more about that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a few minutes here.
Yeah. So, but first of all, let's get some general impressions, because here's the deal. This is episode 6, and for the first 5 episodes, for the majority of the season, Team Power has been losing. Mainly, I think a lot of people would say it's because of one person on the team, Omarosa in particular. And as of last week, she's officially out. So this is, as far as the era of Celebrity Apprentice, this is strictly AO after Omarosa. So
AO, I love it.
AO. So what are your, I think the big question that we had last week, that Grant and I had last week, is can this show survive without someone as colorful and duplicitous and all these other words as Omarosa? I mean, did Omarosa make this show? What do you think from seeing this episode without Omarosa in it?
Well, I mean, to start off with, we all know huge personality, obviously, and she's got a big presence about her. And so, yeah, there are people that will think maybe it won't be as well without her on the show. But I think it was fine without her. I didn't really miss her. Put it that way, put it mildly. I didn't miss her. I think there's a nice comedic relief. I think personally I would miss Gary if he was gone more, because he just brings such a comedic relief to the show. There's a few other people on there that I wouldn't care about either. But I was actually surprised because, like you were saying, she's such a big presence, and think that she's not there. I thought I would have noticed it more, but I really didn't.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I mean, Gary, my heart would be broken if Gary was gone. I think that would change the show a lot more.
Absolutely.
And I know some of our viewers. I've seen some of the stuff on when they rate us. They hate Omarosa. They totally hate her, and some people have called me out on it because sometimes I try and be unbiased about it. But I agree. I agree when she's bad. She's really bad.
Exactly, and she's got that personality, and people really do have a strong dislike for her, or hate, or whatever the case may be. But
that being said, I thought today was a really, really good episode, and I think the one question coming out of or at the start of this episode really is because Team Power didn't just have Omarosa was the biggest personality, and obviously it was easy to put the focus on all the stuff she did because she was very conniving and duplicitous,
backhanded, and had
and she had an agenda all the time. It was very easy to pin problems on her, but this team also had a couple of other components that added to that, and a lot of them are gone. So the question here is, can Team Power win now that they got their bad egg, the worst egg of the bunch, off of their team? And I think this is a really good show to see that. And as we see, there's still some problem people in there. Well, there's really just one in particular, but it's his turn to show up, and that's Dennis Rodman.
Yep.
Totally. So
but problem in a different way from Omarosa, obviously. There's totally different reasons on why he had some issues.
Oh, absolutely. But let's get into the task so that we can talk about how great or how bad Dennis Rodman was today. So we had Melania Trump, which is not her first time appearing on Celebrity Apprentice, but it certainly felt like a really big step because she was the person who created the product that they were going to be advertising.
Yeah, it was kind of the first time that it was centered basically around her and her product. And it was all, it was all about her, basically.
She's researched this for 10 years.
Know, that
she's
was hilarious.
Skincare.
I'm sorry, that was so funny, though. I mean, okay, so she's worked 10 years of her life, but it just felt so dramatic. Research for 10 years and was a part of this every single day. And, okay, fine.
And I find it interesting because she's been married to Donald for 8 years.
Has it been that long already?
Yeah, it's only been 8 years, but she's been researching skincare for 10 years.
I just couldn't believe they've been married that long. Actually, I didn't know it had been that long already.
Yeah, I would have thought that she would have married Trump first and then discovered a passion for business.
Yeah,
but I guess she's had that
the passion by way of the money to be able to subsidize his business.
I suppose so. But anyway, so the product that they were going to be advertising for the show was part of Melania's skincare line, and it was called Melania Caviar Complex C6.
Yes, which, by the way, I think best name ever. I mean, it's just so great, and the fact that they speaking of misspellings, complex has to be extra fancy and have an E at the end of complex.
I thought that really interesting at the beginning.
Sort of like a French spelling, I guess. You want to make sure it's uber European and high class and luxurious. So let's throw an E at the end of anything. You throw an E at the end, it just automatically ups the class. I think.
I guess so.
Just start spelling it. Put an E at the end of my name.
I was going to say the same thing.
Just up the class right there.
But you have to make sure it's silent because you'd be Scate.
Exactly.
And I'd be mine would be weird because I already have a vowel at the end of my name. So 2 vowels.
Well, I guess OE. You'd still be Nando,
That's French,
right?
though. Yeah, I guess it'd be. I guess it would be silent. I guess it would. Oh, maybe I'll do that.
See, be nice and fancy.
Thank you.
Like, there you go.
I'll have to ask a French person if my pronunciation would change with that. But anyway, so Melania Caviar Complex C6, and I really wish they actually mentioned what C6 meant because that also seemed out of there.
What does the C6 stand for? That was something we won't ever know. Why didn't anyone bring up the complex with the E at the end too? Because we had a whole issue with misspellings, which we'll talk about later.
That would have been great.
That would have been a good comeback for.
That would have been a great comeback. Yeah. Anyway, so they were supposed to do an advertorial, I believe they called it, and
another fancy term for. I don't know, presentation.
Another fancy business term.
Yeah, I was like, advertorial. Yeah. Who speaks like that every day?
The teams were they were going to be judged on product display, presentation, and on the actual advertisement itself. And the judges, the people who were going to be assisting Donald Trump, they were going to keep it all in the family for this one. So it was going to be Ivanka and Eric were going to be keeping up. So, and Melania, of course, was going to be watching the presentations and give her a choice. And then Donald was going to award the winning team $20,000. And Melania, in her good nature, I don't know where the money's coming from, but it's all on
Donald's Black American Express card. For the other $20,000, she decided to throw in there as well, double.
I give him credit. He wanted to have her little spotlight moment.
Sure.
Even if the money's all pulled together, or
whatever.
I'm sure they have separate accounts. I'm sure they do. I'm not insinuating anything here. Okay. But
they still have another year and a half. Oh no, wait, he's in New York. I don't know how that works. The marriage split up after 10 years or whatever.
Who knows?
It becomes 50-50.
Anyway, so both teams picked their project managers, and Dennis is like, sure, time to step up. Yeah, I'll do it. So we got Dennis Rodman on Team Power, and Penn Jillette decides to do Plan B. And what do you think about these? Without saying anything up ahead, what do you think? What was your thought when you heard these project managers? How about that?
Well, you know what, I think it's been something we've been waiting for one to see Dennis kind of step up a little bit because as we've seen his kind of transformation from when he was on before. And, he was distracted and wasn't in that place to really be an important team player. So I feel like this time he's come back, he's been more serious. Yeah. He's wanting to put more into it. So I think it was definitely time for him to step up. And at some point, I think as long as you're in there, everybody's got to step up at some point. So, yeah, I think it was good for him to have this moment to step up.
I agree. The only problem I have with it is, again, the big question, I think, was can Team Power win without Omarosa now that Omarosa's gone?
No, yeah. And that's
and Brandy mentioned it at the beginning. She's like, we have to prove ourselves. Now that we finally got rid of her, we have to prove ourselves.
Prove that we can do this without her being here. No, I get that.
I kind of wish somebody else actually said, let me
step up and do it. Yeah. No, that is a good point. But I think it was good for him in that case for him to just step up and say, okay, I'm serious. I'm here. Yeah. Seriously, I want to compete. I want to do it. So I'm gonna be the project manager. So yeah, it was good for that point, but we'll find out later.
Yeah, and then Penn I thought was a good choice too.
Absolutely.
Penn's always a good choice.
Yeah, yeah. You may not be the best when it comes to the way he speaks to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. I mean, he's got to step up at some point, and I think he's a good project manager.
I am surprised. I was surprised that one of the ladies didn't step up in his place because it was a skincare line with Melania.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of hoping to see Mary Lou or Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, who kind of just to me feels like she's in the background all the time, doesn't really.
They to me they're the same person. They kind of meld into the same. If it wasn't for the fact, and you pointed this out, that Mary Lou wears blue, I probably couldn't tell.
I was gonna say Mary Lou wears blue all the time.
Yeah,
but it was sort of like they blended together. They kind of worked together, especially on this task at hand. They worked as like one person there.
I kind of hope, just looking at it, I hope they split them up eventually, because I really want to see
them separated out and see how they handle,
or even against each other.
Yeah,
that would be good.
That would be very good. Yeah, because they have gotten a little too close, buddy, and they're kind of fused together.
You would think. You would think with the casting of shows, usually people cast according to types. Like, we need this type, we need that type, and I feel like they picked two very similar.
They did, no, without a doubt, they're too similar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then they kind of hide in the background, and you don't really see them kind of stepping up and kind of taking those risks at all. They kind of sit in the back and kind of let everyone else do everything.
Now, before this show, anyone who saw last week's show and saw clips for next week, they pretty much hinted that somebody was going to offend Melania. And going off the bat, it seemed like, well, Dennis had a lot of little nice things to say about Melania, and Gary also.
Oh my gosh, Gary, when are we going to see that book of your Garyisms? Because just like every week I sit here and the stuff that is here is so fantastic.
I know.
I mean, it's all gold. All the quotes down here are gold today. I mean, what were some of the things he said today?
Well, he said this before, not in reference to her, obviously, but he said her beauty lies 5,000 miles past heaven. I've heard that before in terms, I think it was for the Silk episode. I think he mentioned that.
Well, he brought it back up again for this one.
Yes, so that's a common one. And then we both had to stop and rewrite this one. You want to say this one, or should I?
Yeah, I was going to say, it said, have you ever had your genitals so excited it spins around like a Ferris wheel at a carnival? I mean, come on, Gary. Seriously.
So great. Scott, can I just ask you, have you ever had your genitalia so excited that it spins around like a Ferris wheel?
I spilled water myself. That's how excited I was just now. I mean, every time I'm here at AfterBuzz, obviously.
Really? Okay.
I'm that excited.
I'm glad that this desk is between us then. I'm really happy this desk is between us.
Say every time I'm here, Nando, with you on the other side of the desk.
Professionally speaking.
Yes, professionally speaking.
On a professional nature.
Yes.
You know, I'm trying to think back the last time I compared my genitalia to a Ferris wheel, and I can't think of it. Maybe a roller coaster. Maybe one of those test your strength things. I don't know. Okay, now.
But God bless Gary with the. I mean, it's just I'm just waiting for that book to come out. I mean, he had a couple other things here too. I can't even read my writing. I should have been a doctor just for the fact I can't read in my writing. But he did have another couple lines here that I thought were just. I mean, it's just great.
Okay, well, you know what? Let me segue before we continue. Let me segue into our iTunes promo.
Yeah,
because nothing better.
I know, right?
After talking about carnival rides and private parts, than to talk about this.
Good to segue because I always forget.
If you like what we're talking about in general, Celebrity Apprentice, not even the last 2 minutes, but if you like this show and you're subscribed, please rate us and comment. We'd love to see your comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And and tell a friend and check out our other AfterBuzz shows.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends.
Every single one of them.
Yeah. And we have lots of other shows here. We have about like 50, 60 of them that are on regularly. I host a couple. You're on Archer, I know. I'm doing The Following. I'm also doing Bates Motel and Amazing Race. So, check them out. And we have like Game of Thrones. We have Mad Men. We have tons of great stuff. So, please. Give us a rating. Give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Keeps these bright lights going.
Yes, there you go. All right, let's start off with Plan B. Okay, so let's just get them out of the way because I gotta admit, you know, once you see these project managers, I think you kind of know what the results might be. But I will say, Gary still keeps it interesting. Gary keeps it fun. What do you think about Plan B as far as their preparation and presentation?
Well, I thought that was their quote was, let your skin taste the luxury, right?
Yes.
That was their quote, or their slogan.
Yeah.
I mean, when I saw them put their stuff together, I thought it just hit her whole brand very well. Like, it was very feminine, from the colors to the way they did the fonts to, you know, I thought their slogan was really smart. I mean, it seemed like everyone else really liked Taste the Luxury kind of thing. I think they liked it more than I did as a viewer, but I thought overall it was smart and it fit exactly what her brand was very well. So I think, I mean, just from watching at the beginning, I thought they did good. What did you think?
I actually liked the original idea, but maybe it was too simple. I didn't think it was that simple. It was nourish your skin.
Yeah, I like that one too. Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, because I equated nourishing and as eating. With caviar.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like the taste part just seemed a little silly, but everyone else seemed to like it on the show. And
yeah, it's fine.
Like it and everything, but yeah, but the actual products, the way they displayed it and everything, I thought really fit.
Yeah. What I like too, I liked the fact that Lisa, I guess it was Lisa and Mary Lou came up with it, or
yes, the two-headed monster, Mary Lou and Lisa.
Should I call him Larry Lou, or should I call him
or Mary
Lisa? Larry Lisa. I don't know. we should actually start calling him like Larry Lou. I think it might be good. Anyway, they came up, I think, with the Nourish Your Skin, and Penn, who usually comes up with the idea first. Just went with it, which I liked, and then he changed it to Taste the Luxury, and everyone seemed to be on board, so that was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think again, I think this this project needed more of a woman's touch, just because later on it just seemed to be that Penn was a little blunt and terse.
No,
again,
he was very blunt and terse, but I thought overall as a group that they all pretty much worked well together.
Yeah.
I think they executed the project really well on what they needed to do, and when it came down to the actual branding and how it should look and feel for the product for Melania, I thought that they were pretty flawless across the board.
I love the use of caviar. I personally, I don't care much for caviar.
Yeah, right.
They had $3,400 to spend on caviar.
But that was great too when Penn had said that too about
promiscuous.
Be promiscuous with your caviar.
I didn't know you could be promiscuous.
I didn't either.
That. I thought promiscuous meant something completely different.
Yeah,
Going back to Gary's quote about
maybe
Ferris wheels.
Maybe it had a little both there, being promiscuous, like just be ridiculously crazy, you know, with this fancy caviar when they're $3,400 that they had to spend.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I should have. We looked up his other big word, but we should look up promiscuous because I'm really curious if there is a term.
Another way of saying it.
Yeah. You know what? I can't even spell it right. Oh, here it is. But I'll look it up later. But yeah, promiscuous, and another word he used was maggoty. Be maggoty with the caviar.
Yeah. See, I didn't know either. I was thinking, is that meant something with maggots, like would eat caviar in that sense?
I don't know.
Or is that an actual like kind of slang term for something? Well, I was just thinking that's what it meant. Like,
I don't know.
And you know, maggots and animals would.
Well, that's a word you think of. You think of them. Yeah, maggots.
Yeah.
And according to hold on a second. According to the free dictionary,
your fancy iPad.
I had to look it up. You know, according to the free dictionary, let's see, maggoty is there are three definitions. It's considered an adjective, so he's got that right. Relating to or resembling or ridden with maggots. So right then and there, I don't think that sounds good for an advertisement.
No, it doesn't.
Here's the other one. Number 2, it's slang for very drunk, which I've never heard before.
I haven't either.
So next time I'm at a club, I'm gonna go up to a friend of mine after a few too many, and I'm gonna say you're very maggoty. You're very maggoty. And then the third one is an Austral slang. So I'm guessing Austral stands for Australian, being annoyed or angry. So
none of those seem to really fit in with what I was thinking, I guess, except for the maggot part, which sounds negative.
The only other thing I see in thesaurus underneath, it says it's an adjective, maggoty, spoiled and covered with eggs and larvae of flies. Again, none of this sounds appealing for advertising a product. No. None of this. So Penn, who is probably the smartest person there.
Yeah, using words I have never even used, and I like to use big words.
Yes.
So I guess you really do learn something new every day, right?
And then just because it's here, promiscuous. Let's see, promiscuous as an adjective as well. Definition 1, having casual sexual relations frequently with different partners, indiscriminate in the choice of sexual partners. I think we both figured that one out.
Yeah,
I think we both
got the first one.
2, lacking standards of selection, indiscriminate. I could understand that a little with the caviar. In other words, just pick anything or just pick a general amount.
Yeah.
So maybe that one works.
Yeah, because it's just like pick something, you got the money, just get a bunch of caviar.
Casual, number 3, casual or random. So again,
I've learned so much today. And look at this. Now we've had our definitions. I feel like we're in class.
Although I do feel like he wanted them to be specific. So I find that to be a little contradictory, but that's fine.
I think it works though in the sense where you're saying just get a bunch of different caviar. You spent all this money, bring it back, make it look good.
Yeah. And then here's the 4th one. There's actually 4. Consisting of diverse, unrelated parts or individuals. And there's a semicolon, and it says confused. So I think that last word sums it up. Confused. It was very confusing language. But anyway, so
we've had our lesson of the day here with our words. Yes.
The more you know. Thank you. So there you go. So Team Plan B with Penn in charge. Mary Lou and Lisa stepped up, I really felt. And Gary was...
Sure. Gary was Gary.
Gary was... It was a little... He was a little bit of a wild card because he was in the presence of such beauty.
Yes, which he said. And also, I loved it when Stephen also had a good quote tonight, too. Where was that at, too?
Oh, yeah. You wrote that one down, I think, right?
Oh, yes. Stephen had said, I was praying to the Gary angels that they would tie his tongue. Because when he was going up and doing the presentation, again, like you're saying, he's such a wild card. You have no idea what's going to come out of his mouth. So... You know, it could be a little bit of a concern when you have him out there and doing a presentation.
I thought he was cute, and I thought he's never. I don't think he's ever offended a female. If anything, his face. I hate to say this, but just because of his mannerisms.
No, I even wrote that down about the fact that just his faces and his expressions are so awesome.
They're awesome
throughout the entire show. I'm just watching it. I'm like, oh my god!
But I feel like his expressions could be more intimidating or creepy or whatever than his comments. His comments seem to just be. Funny.
But he also does the silly, kind of crazy expressions too. That kind of I feel could lighten the mood a little bit too. If he's making sort of an inappropriate comment, he can kind of get away with it with that expression or the kind of doing a weird facial. Tick.
At the end of the presentation, I remember he said, "This is no longer a secret weapon. It's a secret miracle." So I mean, stuff like that. It's cute. It's a little weird. It's confusing as well, but you gotta love Gary.
Yeah.
And again, I'm so glad he's still on the show.
I am too. See,
so
I would be bummed if he was not there because that would get rid of all my comedic relief every week.
Now let's talk about Team Power.
Then he's got to write the book regardless.
Oh, he's got to write the book. And I think at this point, because we've talked about it so much on this podcast, I really want 10%.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I should get something for it, or at least give me a little mention in the beginning.
Yes, but say thank you in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you to both of us.
So
let's free coffee.
And free coffee. Yes, sure. Why not? So let's see. Let's move on to Team Power.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think? Let me ask you this. What do you think of Dennis's managerial style?
Lacking. None. There really wasn't one, in my opinion. But that's kind of part of the course when it's him. I wasn't expecting. I would have been more surprised, I think, if he'd come in and being a really detailed kind of manager. I think that would have surprised me more than the way he was, because that's what I expect him to be.
Yeah.
Kind of lackadaisical, just going with the flow, not really being detail oriented, paying attention to details, as we find out later, was a big deal.
I'm surprised.
He missed something very big, but not just him. A lot of people, but I mean, we'll get into that. But
yeah,
I mean, what did you think?
Well, I was going to say I was surprised because he stepped up. Because he said he stepped up.
Like we said earlier, I like that too. I like the fact that he stepped up because I think it was part of his whole thing of coming back and being serious contender and not screwing it up like he knew he did last time, and he was going to be here and he was here to play.
Yeah.
But besides that, I wasn't expecting much out of him in that.
I guess I wasn't either. I just was hoping that because he said he would be project manager, that maybe he would take a little bit more of a controlling attitude. Yeah. Also sometimes the signs of a good manager is to surround yourself with smarter people than you and have them.
Oh, that's exactly. You have to surround yourself with smart people that can help execute everything. Absolutely.
Sometimes that's a very big business practice. So in that sense, Dennis succeeded, for lack of a better way.
Yeah.
He had some really good people on his team, and this did seem like a team, in my opinion, that could win a project.
Yeah.
You know, Trace, who was first runner-up the first season. Brandy, who is very, very smart. You know, not just a pretty face. A lot more than a pretty face. Very, very intelligent. And Little John, who's also a big favorite.
Little John too, exactly. Very, very good at what he does. And you know, he's great every week.
Yeah, I could probably put one of those three against anybody, with the exception of maybe Penn. Anyone against one-on-one against anyone from Plan B, and I think they would.
You're right.
Better.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, but the other side. Yeah.
And it's just unfortunate about the losing streak. But Dennis is in charge, and Trace seemed to take over for his stuff. And you know, speaking of which, by the way, speaking of being offensive to Melania, I think his comment, which was in a confessional, was probably the most offensive thing to Melania at all. I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if she saw it, the episode tonight, what she would say about him. Say, oh, it's a good thing she didn't speak English, in the sense that she couldn't understand Dennis.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little mean.
Yeah.
I thought Trace, who's usually very diplomatic, I think was actually a little less so this episode.
Yeah, although he said things in the past. I was trying to remember one from a couple weeks ago. He'd said, and I forgot now, but
yeah,
I mean, so it I expect him to kind of make those comments here and there.
Yeah,
he can do that, but yeah, I wasn't smart.
Yeah. But anyway, Trace had the slogan, which was Simply Melania, Simply Luxury.
Yep.
And
Which, simple.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great slogan, better, in my opinion, than the Let Your Skin Taste of Luxury.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Yeah, because I think that spoke better to the brand, and again, going with the simple thing, that's what it was. It basically explained what this was.
And Ivanka loved it. Yeah.
Luxury.
Yeah.
You know? That's all you need.
Yeah, and like I said, Ivanka loved it, so that was great. And then Trace pretty much did. He worked with this pretty girl. It almost looked like he was flirting with her a little bit, but when they were doing the design, and he was working with that, so he did most of the work.
Yeah.
Brandy worked on the presentation, which I thought she was phenomenal. Little John, I'm not sure what he did. I guess he was supposed to do something, and he said Trace took over, so he just sat back and realized, well, it's not going to be my problem. So it falls on him. So Little John taking a different approach this week, I think, just stepping back a little bit. And Dennis, of course, his managerial style, and this is a quote from him, was his style is whatever. That was his style.
Yeah, and that is him. So he at least knows what he is. So, yeah.
So without getting into the major error that we'll be talking about in a little bit. First of all, I thought it was really funny. Even Brandy was getting Melania's name wrong. I think we're calling Melania or something.
At one point they were saying Melania.
Yeah.
Melania. Like they were all saying, and they didn't quite know how to.
And Brandy said it once. I don't know if she was joking or being serious. But like she forgot the name for a second, so they were messing around with that. But before we get into the whole name, what do you think overall their presentation and I mean, you said you like the slogan, obviously. So slogan. I
like the slogan better than the other one with Plan B. But I think Plan B overall had the better structure and layout, like we were saying, with the use of the fonts, the colors. I mean, just the overall package, I think, fit the brand more than theirs. I thought theirs was a little bit simpler. I get the white background, you know, again, that can be used simply and everything, but I just think like the way the fonts were, some of the other little details were just not quite up to par for the type of luxurious brand that I think that they were going for.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it wasn't as good. Even taking out the mistake, I think the other team had done better overall with the overall presentation.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. I liked the style, the graphics in Plan B better. Now I know that later on in the boardroom they were going over pros and cons. It sounded like Melania preferred and Donald preferred Power's simpler style, that it was more feminine, perhaps. So so maybe
simple.
maybe us two guys looking at that stuff didn't see that because we weren't.
No,
that we weren't the target audience, and they felt that was. I don't know.
I thought it was just too simple. I know they did like it, but I just thought it was too simple for the type of luxury that they might have tried been going after. But yeah, I mean, you know.
Hey, I'm willing to give it to them. I think, you know, they it's their product, so they know how they're doing on that. But yeah, I mean, I love Brandy. I thought she was really awesome with presentation. She said, I'm the target audience. I'm the housewife. I'm the businesswoman. I'm this, I'm that. And she really spoke to her as opposed
and she was able to connect to the product. So she knew, how to present it.
As opposed to Penn, who was just very, very unromantic, to say, just very... I was trying to think of a big word to use wrong, like Penn seems to. Antiseptic. I don't know. He was very, very sterile or something.
He was. He definitely, comparing the two of them, like she did, because she got it. That product was speaking to her. Yeah. And she was just warmer in her presentation and how she delivered than he was. Absolutely. There was a coldness, a kind of, like you said, a sterile way that he presented it, because there's no way that he could connect to it anyways in the same way that she could.
And I would say,
so that helped them. That helped, unfortunately it didn't help them to win, but it helped Power overall.
And I would say that if Plan B ended up losing, I would think that a major focus would probably be on Penn for that. That would have been the major faux pas on that, because he should have had. I think it would have been smarter if he had Mary Lou or Lisa or Larry Lou.
Yeah, have them both, exactly. I think it would have been smart to have them be the ones to present it, because like you saw, Dennis didn't have to necessarily present it, in the sense he could let her kind of sit back and Brandy kind of do that instead. So I think it would have been smart for them, if it came down to it, for them to present it. Exactly. Because it would have been their type of product.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, anyway, let's move on to the boardroom. It was a pretty fun and, well, let's say it's simple. I think the probably the best part of the whole boardroom was when Donald switched shared the opponent's products.
Yeah,
the opponent's
so they could see
final
the presentations, they could see it Advertorials.
And to see Stephen Baldwin just light up when he saw that Melania was spelled wrong.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. That was a great reveal. And I got to give credit to all the Trumps, not just Melania, but Melania, Donald, Eric, and Ivanka for not doing the reveal earlier, because
it would have been easy to do that. Yes.
Yeah, because if someone spells your name wrong, you're going to say, you spell my name wrong.
Yeah, like, what the F are you doing here? Like, spell my name right. Like, that it would have been an obvious thing that you would think they would bring up earlier. But it did work that they didn't bring it up. Although I wish Eric would not have the slick back hair, but that's my own. You don't have to look just like your dad, okay?
Yeah.
Come on, change the hair. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I did like the fact they kept that from them and let the other team discover it or see if they noticed it right away.
Yeah.
If you know, the misspelling.
Because the truth is, regardless of whose fault it was, you had 4 people who were staring at a piece of paper for a presentation the whole time, and not one of the 4.
Not one of them found it. And I think the reason why this was a deadlier or bigger mistake is the fact that it was part of the product's name. It would be one thing if maybe you're saying this is Melania's thing and you just had her name there, but this was the actual part of the product's full name with the whole Melania's Caviar Complex C6. So her name was in it. So that's, to me, where it made an even bigger mistake, is when it's on the product name and you're going to present this and you misspell that. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I understand that that's a big mistake.
Yeah.
That's not something you screw around with.
So there was a little pomp and circumstance, and Donald was asking for pros and cons from both teams. And, I mean, they went over Plan B and said Penn did a great job. They loved the slogan, and they referred to the fact that, I didn't catch this right away, but I guess they referred to the fact that Penn called Melania a spokesperson when she really was the creator or contributor or the main person.
Again, you know, Penn's kind of not the best spokesperson, there we go, to have on your team if you can't get people's things right or have a way of being able to express things.
Give him a couple of torches with fire or a chainsaw, a couple of balls.
Do the comedic stuff and some of the funner things, but don't let him be the one that's going to be speaking on your behalf.
Well,
he's not always the most tactful, and also, yeah, that is a big deal too.
Penn is incredibly intellectual, but sometimes he doesn't mince words, and in this case, it wasn't really a negative, but it just didn't really get the emotion correctly on that. But anyway, at the end, even after going through all this stuff, because Donald loves to find out who's the star and who's the worst person on the team or whatever, even though we didn't get to hear too much of that, finally he just said, Dennis, you spelled her name wrong. You guys lost. It's simple as that, which is fair.
Which is fair and totally true. And as we were kind of saying when we were watching the show, is regardless, I mean, here was the thing. I would have had more respect for Dennis if he just stood up for the fact, you know what, I'm project manager, it stops with me, kind of thing. Like, if somebody had actually taken the responsibility to say, regardless of him missing or whatever, he's the one that signed off on it at the end of the day. He's the one that has that final look at it, and he's the one that's going to inevitably have to take the fall because he screwed up. Regardless of half a dozen other people on your team saw it, you're the one at the end that had the final say.
I loved how he said, you guys caught a letter, but you still called her a spokesperson.
Yeah.
How dare you call her a spokesperson, but you caught that one letter.
Yeah.
But you did, like, that was the bigger deal.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It was like he wasn't taking the responsibility, and that was, to me, I had more respect for the people that could admit, like, you know what, I screwed up, or, you know, I'm the one that's running the show here, so I have to take responsibility and the reputation for what the people that are working below me are doing, and I'm signing off on it. So that was the one thing. I wish he would have just right away from the start stood up and said, I screwed up.
Do you think that if they spelled her name correctly, do you think that Power could have won this one?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think there was a much better shot of them winning.
Do you think they would have?
You know, I don't know. I definitely think that they would have had a much better chance to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the way they were leading it, even though...
Not in the leading part, but if they'd spelled her name correctly, I think there was less to be able to nitpick on that.
What I meant by leading, I meant the way Trump was leading the boardroom. It made it sound like he really liked everything else about Power.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, the way... I thought you meant, like, the way Dennis was leading the group and everything, like, that it wasn't run well. But, yeah, no, the way it was going, I definitely think he had a decent shot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just was curious what you thought.
Shot.
Now,
I mean, did you feel the same way, or did you think it still would have gone the other way?
See, it's interesting because I think I'm very biased toward Plan B. I really like them as a team, even though I just admitted that I think the 3 people that are left right now, one-on-one, are better than just about everybody else on Plan B, except for Penn. I still feel Penn is there.
That's why I say I feel like the one-on-one on the other, they're weaker.
Yeah.
If you were to compare.
That being said,
Power.
I like to root for an underdog sometimes. So I kind of
do too, and
like
I would have liked to have seen them win anyways. But the streak, it would have been nice to actually see them win, and I think they 100% would have had a much better chance to win if it wasn't for such a big glaring screw up like that.
Now, here's the question, too. Because you're Donald, let's say you're Donald Trump. Let's say you got the hair, you got the money, everything's got your name on it. And your wife's product is it's your wife's product and somebody misspells her name. Do you fire all 4? Do you fire 2? Do you fire 3? Do you fire 1? Because really, what we learned in the boardroom sometimes, some seasons, I don't think this season as much, but some seasons we learn is what to expect in a boardroom is not to expect the unexpected from Donald, because he could fire whoever the hell he wants.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you think this was one of those episodes that maybe more than one person should have been fired, and maybe they weren't because Power is just so on the ropes already?
Again, it was just what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. All 4 missed it.
All four missed it, but the thing is, and it's not making it more of an excuse, but if you have like Trace and you have Brandy and everyone's working on this copy, and you have the spell check, but it doesn't know Melania, so misspells it anyways, and you're just to glance over. I mean, you do it in the human mind anyways. You'll see a misspelled word in the middle of a paragraph, but you'll still kind of read it correctly in your head.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier for them, especially if they're working on this product a whole day, to miss it. Not that it's an excuse, more as the person like Dennis, who's the project manager, who's signing off at the end of the day, that's not seeing it necessarily until he's seeing them sending over the final copy or the second to final copy or whatever is going on there, and he's the one that has to be the final person to sign off, then it, to me, still falls on him.
Yeah.
Regardless if he was the one that wrote it or not. So I don't think that it would have been good to fire 4 of them, although it was a stupid mistake. It was easy to glance over it when you're trying to work on the full product. So yeah, I think it still falls on him because well, it's his thing.
I mean, they called the right 2 people back.
Absolutely.
I mean, because Trace,
absolutely,
it started with Trace.
Yep.
And it ended with Dennis.
Yeah.
Even though Little John and Brandy both saw it and could have said something.
Absolutely.
It started and ended.
It started and ended, so they absolutely brought the right people in.
What I didn't like too was I didn't feel Trace felt he was responsible either. It seemed like both of them were blaming the girl.
That's what I'm saying. I know, because at one point, and again, that's what I'm saying, Trace sometimes makes these comments that I think aren't always great too, because he called her that little girl should have noticed.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's not really
well, Trace is usually pretty diplomatic, I've noticed.
But he makes comments, though, and I've mentioned in the past, he's made comments that I think are not quite the most appropriate, like calling her that little girl should have noticed. Like, no, not cool. And regardless, again, I would have had more respect for him, just like Dennis, if you would just owe up to your mistake.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what? I screwed up. I missed it. That's a huge deal. And then let it go from there and see what your punishment or whatever would be. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I would respect someone so much more if they could do that.
Yeah.
But they were both not trying to take... Nobody was really taking the responsibility. I mean, it wasn't really... Little John's fault anyways. Or
Dennis said it was no one was responsible.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what was kind of stupid. It's like, come on.
At least, if Omarosa was still on this team and that happened. First of all, if Omarosa was on that team and that happened, she would have either caught it or she would have kept her mouth, as long as she wasn't project manager.
Yeah,
she would have kept her mouth shut
to let someone else take the fall, the project manager or whatever. Absolutely.
So I'll give her, you got to give her credit. That's something that Omarosa would not have let go. And
or only if it wasn't going to work in her favor.
Exactly.
Kind of like in the way it worked for Little John to kind of sit back in this one, because sometimes it doesn't work in your favor, because if you sit back and you're not doing anything, it's easy for you to end up taking the fall too, because you're not being proactive and being part of the team. But in this case, I think it actually worked in his favor to kind of sit back and let other ones kind of take the fall. And that being said, Trace and Dennis, I felt like there was really, I mean, it was a foregone conclusion. I guess you could say that the project manager has to go for something like this. I think everyone would more or less agree, even though I really felt Trace was responsible. And I got to say, Trace is such a power player. Again, he did so well his season of Apprentice. He was up to the finals. He was in the final 2, lost to Pierce Morgan, and it would be amazing to see him go out on something like this. I think that would have been a big story too if Dennis ended up staying, he left, because it did start with him. It did, but it ended with Dennis, and that's where it comes down to. So I think it was it was the right move having Dennis fired. There's no other way around it. And again, considering how Dennis, considering how Dennis has played the whole game, especially as project manager, it just makes the most sense. But again, you expect the unexpected sometimes from O'Donnell, and I almost kind of wanted to see Trace go. Yeah, or both go, or both go, or both. But I don't think it really fell for Trace to go when it was all said and done. And I think exactly what happened. One person left, and that was the right way. Although it was interesting when Ivanka said about Dennis not having a filter, talking about that, and I kind of thought, what does that really have to do with this, though? Yeah. I thought it was interesting that she brought that up while they were going through the deliberating and who was going to be let go. I mean, what did you think of that too? Because it was like she brought that up, and I just thought, well, what's wrong with that? I mean, I don't see how that played into anything that was going on with what was at that moment.
Interesting, because I wanted to bring this up next, and not necessarily about Ivanka, but about Trump. But the same could be said for Ivanka on this. This is the second week in a row he's done this, too. With Omarosa, he said a bunch of really nice things. He was very diplomatic.
Yeah, no, he was very nice with her and with Dennis.
And right now, to the point where I almost feel like he's coddling these people, like maybe because of their egos. I think with Dennis, it's also a case of you don't want to say the wrong thing, and I guess almost put him back. I mean, after all, some of these reality shows, some of these competition shows, they have psychiatrists when you get kicked off because it messes people up.
Oh, yeah.
So I think Donald was trying to graciously say, Dennis, you know, you're a great person. You're a great comeback story.
But he said great job, which I thought was weird. He's like, you're fired. And he's like, great job, Dennis.
Yeah.
I thought that was a weird disconnect. You're like, say you're fired, but you know.
So I feel like there's an agenda there to keep these egos in check.
Yeah, I thought that was really odd, especially with that, because it was right after. He's like, you're fired, but great job, and you're a great person. And I thought, okay, that's a little much.
I feel he's coddling. I think he's coddling him a lot.
I absolutely, totally agree. I thought that was a little odd because it was just so obvious, and it felt so weird that you're saying you're fired on one hand, but the next line you're saying great job. But how's that a great job when you missed a very big thing today?
Exactly. I feel like these, I don't know, it's almost like you've got these people who are celebrities in their own rights. They've made money. They've done what. Some of them have had some breakdowns. They've had some hard times, but they should be there because they're fully capable to do a show that's for charity. It's not even like they're making that much money off it. They're making it for their charities. And then they get kicked.
And for their own appearances and to get back out kind of in the game there.
And then they all get fired. They all get fired. So don't coddle, but I get it a little bit.
I do, but I thought it was a little odd too because it was funny you brought that up because I was thinking that in my head, noticing that's now happened a couple weeks in a row now.
Now, when Dennis left and he got his little exit monologue interview, whatever you want to call that, at the end in the limo, he said that he felt he did a good job of rebounding from 5 years ago when he was last on. So my question is, do you think, based on this season of the All-Star Celebrity Apprentice, do you think he really did a good job of rebounding?
I think, yeah, I mean, I do. I think because if you're just comparing to where he was 5 years ago and where he is now, then yes, I think he did do a good job. Because I think he came in here, even though he wasn't the best project manager, and we all know he's not going to be the one that's going to be focused and doing those detail things. But I think that he came with a more serious approach this time, whereas where he was here last time, he wasn't taking it seriously. It was almost like if I was to be doing a job 10 years ago from where I am now, it would have been the same thing. I would have done the job, but I would have been more concerned about where's the next party or where's this or that, and now I'd be more focused on the job at hand and taking it more seriously. And I think it was the same thing with him. He's grown, and he was taking it more serious this time. He still wasn't at the point where I think he was good as a project manager, be able to do some of the detail-oriented tasks, because that's just not him.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. From where he was to where he is now, yes.
I think he was more present. He was a little bit more present, marginally more present.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was sober, I think, says a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion. But I think
thing.
in terms of the game, I really don't think he did a great job rebounding. I think if he actually showed up as a project manager this week, I think you could say, even if they lost and he got kicked out, I think if he had a different attitude when he was project managing, I would say yes. But I just don't feel personally, I don't feel based on the game. If you wanted to advertise Dennis Rodman as a businessman, as a leader,
I agree.
I don't think he rebounded.
No, you're absolutely right there. If you're comparing it to the game, no. But if you're comparing it to personally where he was and where he is now and what he brought for himself to come play the game for where he is, then there was a big improvement. If you're talking about it as a business standpoint and the game standpoint, no, he's still. But that could be said for a lot of people. If you're ever going to get to a point of being on the game in that way,
you're right. And I guess some of these people don't think of themselves as coming on here to show themselves as a business person.
No.
They just come here to have fun,
exactly, and
to show their faces.
And so they're trying to get back in the limelight again.
Let us move on now that we pretty much recapped the show to some news and gossip.
AfterBuzz TV News.
All right, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, we were talking about what was in the HuffPost about Omarosa being an ordained Baptist minister now.
Yes.
I mean, what is going on with that? That's crazy.
She was. It was in an Oprah special. Where Are They Now? And which showed on Tuesday, April 2nd. And I guess they talked about, even though we know her as a villain, we know her and love her or hate her
and
as a villain.
the reality star maven. Yeah, one that just did 10 reality shows as much as she could.
Yeah.
It was on everything. Like you said, always playing the villain, always kind of playing the dark person on there, trying to big personality, but always was it being used for the darkness.
Yeah.
It's now an ordained Baptist minister, which I found fascinating.
I find it really funny that probably the two biggest villains in the game, because even though we haven't seen another one yet, it just seems like Stephen Baldwin is one, or is always just shifty. That the two biggest villains of the game, so to speak, seem to be a spokesperson for God. They seem to be very
Christian and religious and
reverent people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would never have guessed in a million years. I would have thought that was an April Fool's joke saying that Omarosa is a Baptist minister. I think it's great for her. But
that's probably why they aired the Oprah special on April 2nd and not on April 1st.
Everyone thought it wasn't true.
Yes, that's probably why they did that. That makes sense. Also, during that Oprah special, she did talk a lot about her relationship with Michael Clark Duncan.
And those final days there leading up to his unfortunate passing away.
And I guess they went to bed together, and he went to bed a little earlier than her. And at some point late in the evening, Omarosa said she could hear him laboring and trying to breathe, so she tried to do CPR and try to call 911. And according to this, it sounds like this is really the path that got her to path of God.
The catalyst to get her into that, which makes sense. You have a big life-altering change, and she found God this way. And I guess it went on to say about how she's doing a lot of charity work now with this in West Africa and everything. So
yeah. And
good for her.
And then in other Omarosa news, it seems like all our news is always about Omarosa, so I'm curious as to next week. But last week's episode, they showed Paul Wharton, who some people may know as he's one of the people from DC Housewives. So he's an alumnus from there. And he was giving $5,000 to Omarosa, but we saw or we heard audio that sounded like she was giving him $2,000 more because she wanted to make more money than Dennis Rodman on last week's task. So we all thought she was cheating. Grant was on here talking about some stuff with her charity foundation that Claudia Jordan made some allegations that she was taking money from there. So anyway, Paul Wharton was interviewed, and this is an article that's in the Washington Examiner, and he's actually very shocked. He said he was as shocked as anyone else was that he saw that and heard the allegations that it sounded like she was giving him money. So he claims that she never gave any of her own money to him. What he was doing at the art gallery, he was trying to get other people in the gallery to do a timeshare with him for the artwork. And and he said that being on the Real Housewives of DC prepared him for dubious editing. He says, I just find that they kind of piece it together, he said. And also, what was surprising to me about that is that if there was any shady business going on, I believe it would have come out in the boardroom. And that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense to me.
It does make sense, especially with the editing and everything else, because you're right. When I first had heard about that, I thought, oh, the 2000, it does seem a little sneaky. Like, what is she doing here with this?
Yeah.
But you're right. It's very easy to edit things and make people seem like they're doing something that they weren't. And so it makes sense.
I'm glad to hear. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm willing to take. To take his word for it in the Washington Examiner. We all love to see Omarosa be a bad person, and it's
hey, now she's a Baptist minister, so she's got to live up to.
God is on her side.
She's got to be even more.
You got to love it. God's on her side.
And godly now. So
great, and that is our news and gossip. Again, I'm wondering what's going to happen next week. Hopefully Omarosa will do something else. We'll have 16 minutes of fame.
Right.
I don't know. Let's move on then to predictions.
And now your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So we got to see clips.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's hard to talk about predictions when you get to see a preview of what's going on next week, because it stole what I was going to say about wanting Gary to be out there and be project manager finally.
That was going to be your prediction? So you got it right.
It would have. No, I mean, it would have. But I can't say that now because it's easy to say that. It's like the psychic saying after somebody said something, oh, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. But the only thing I am concerned about is like, ooh, that puts him right out there on the line now.
Yeah, absolutely.
That put him up as a sitting duck because I don't want to see him go. So it makes me a little worried.
I don't want to see him go either. So it's a little scary, but I will say this. They said that the task had to do with creating a silent movie. And we've already made a comment on Gary's facial expressions. So I will say that one thing that's very important in a silent movie is being able to project
expressive
without using audio. So I feel that this is one of those occasional swerves that they do by making it sound like one person in the reality shows, one person or one team's in trouble when they really aren't. So I'm going to go out on a limb, even though Gary can be very disruptive and not be cohesive. I'm going to say that Power's going to lose again.
Well, we're gonna keep the streak going.
I'm gonna say Power's gonna lose again, even though I love Power, because Gary, I think his talents will be at use on this one.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. Love the Gary.
We'll see about that. So anyway, where can we find you when you're not listening to AfterBuzz?
Yeah, you can find me on the old Twitter at sman80. That's SMAN80.
And then you also do Archer.
Oh yes,
AfterBuzz.
Archer on Thursday, of course, and it's our season finale. So you gotta definitely tune into that on Thursday.
If you love Archer, that's the one to see.
Yes, it is for sure.
Okay, and then my name is Nando at Velasquez, and you can find me on the Twitter as well at Nandovel, Nandovel. Also, I do some AfterBuzz here for the following: Bates Motel, and also The Amazing Race.
Yeah,
so,
you basically live here.
It's only 3 shows. They do like 40 more without me, so it's all good. But anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we hope to catch you again next week.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.